It started on a Wednesday night that should have been ordinary. I had just settled onto my couch after a long day, a bowl of leftover pasta in my lap, and the latest basketball game playing on my big screen. The blinds were half open, the soft glow of the TV spilling onto the porch. That's when I saw the shadow of a large, hunched shape lingering outside my window. My stomach tightened. I muted the game and leaned forward just in time to hear the faint but unmistakable sound of a phone dialing. And then, clear as day, yes, I'm at 1438 Westbrook Drive, and there's a suspicious man inside. He's just sitting there, staring at the screen. Could be casing the place. It was Karen Whitfield, HOA president, serial complainer, and the woman who'd spent the last year finding creative ways to remind me that in her eyes, I didn't belong here. The fact that she was describing Mainside, my own home, like I was an intruder, that was new even for her. I got up, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch. "Karen, what are you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She didn't even flinch, just turned slightly so her phone could catch my face. "I'm on with the police," she said, her tone dripping with false concern. "You need to stay right where you are until they arrive." My hands curled into fists. "I live here. You know I live here. You've seen me mow the lawn, fix the porch, taken the mail." She cut me off with a smile that was more of a sneer. "We'll let the officers decide. People can say a lot of things, but that doesn't make them true." I could have gone back inside. I could have waited for the police to show and sort it out. But something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. This wasn't just about tonight. It was about every sideways glance, every petty letter, every moment she tried to make me feel like a stranger in my own neighborhood. And it was time to flip the script. I stepped back inside, grabbed my phone, and started recording from my front hallway. From the camera's angle, you could see Karen still on my porch, the open window behind her framing my living room, my mail on the entry table, and the photos of my family on the wall. Then I walked outside again, recording the whole time. "Karen," I said loudly enough for the mic to catch, "you are standing on my property without permission. You are trespassing. You have been here for," I checked my watch, "over 3 minutes while calling 911 on me inside my own home. Do you want to explain that to the officers when they arrive?" For the first time, she hesitated. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm performing a community safety check," she said, eyes darting to the street as if looking for backup. "And that porch? HOA jurisdiction." That's when I pulled my ace from up my sleeve. The county plat map I kept in my phone's files, showing my property line extending 2 feet past the porch rail. "Not HOA jurisdiction," I said. "Private property, covered under state trespass laws. You're lucky I'm just filming and not calling in a complaint." The blue and red lights washed over us a moment later, and 2 officers stepped out of the cruiser. Karen moved toward them like they were her personal cavalry. "Officers, thank goodness." But she didn't get to finish. One of them held up a hand. "Ma'am, step back. We got a call from dispatch that there might be a burglary in progress here." "Sir, can you confirm your identity?" I handed over my ID, the address matching the one on the call. The other officer glanced at my phone, which was still recording. "And you have video of her here on your property?" I nodded, replaying the clip from the start. They exchanged a look. Karen's voice pitched higher. "You're seriously taking his word over mine?" "Look at him," but the officer cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, stop. We're looking at evidence, not assumptions." That word assumption shit like a gavel. It hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. One officer took Karen aside while the other stayed with me. That's when the twist dropped. The officer's body cam had picked up her entire 911 call, including her claim that she didn't think someone like him belonged in the house. Combined with my footage, that was more than enough for a formal trespassing report. And thanks to a recent state law, making a knowingly false emergency call against someone because of race or identity could carry civil penalties. Karen's confidence drained the moment the officer read her the citation. She tried to argue, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But the body cam footage and my recording told a different story, one where she stood on my porch for nearly 5 minutes, called 911 under false pretenses, and made comments she couldn't spin as anything but racial bias. The officer's voice was calm but firm as he explained the situation. She was being cited for trespassing, making a false emergency report, and subject to an investigation under the state's new discriminatory 911 call law. She'd also have to appear in civil court to answer for damages. The scene didn't end quietly. Neighbors had started to gather at the end of my driveway, drawn by the flashing lights. When the officers escorted Karen to her own property, a few people shook their heads. Others whispered, the word finally audible in the night air. It wasn't just my fight anymore. Everyone seemed to know this was part of a pattern. 2 weeks later, the HOA meeting was standing room only. I walked in with a printed transcript of the 911 call and copies of the video evidence. The room was buzzing, but it fell silent when I played the audio on a small speaker. Hearing her own words, stripped of context or spin, made even her staunchest allies shift uncomfortably in their seats. Mrs. Lopez from down the street, one of the longest-standing HOA members, was the first to speak. Karen, this isn't a safety check. This is harassment. That cracked the dam. Others chimed in stories of her hovering outside windows, questioning guests, writing violation notices for made-up infractions. Mr. Reed, who'd lived here longer than anyone, told how she'd once accused his visiting niece of prowling when she was walking their dog. The more people spoke, the smaller Karen seemed in her chair, her hands gripping the armrests like they were the only thing keeping her upright. When the vote to remove her as HOA president came, it wasn't close. Not a single hand rose in her defense. Mrs. Lopez was appointed interim president on the spot, promising transparency and respect for all residents. But Karen's reckoning wasn't done. In civil court, the judge ordered her to pay me restitution for legal fees and emotional distress, along with a mandatory apology letter that the HOA board chose to publish in the community newsletter. The state's investigation resulted in a fine and a required anti-bias training course. For someone who had built her identity on power and control, the humiliation was total. Months later, the neighborhood felt lighter. Kids played in the park without her circling in her golf cart. Guests came and went without being interrogated. At the next block party, people laughed and shared food like we'd all been released from some long, invisible leash. My porch, once the site of that tense standoff, became a place for evening chats with neighbors who had once been too afraid to speak up. The last time I saw Karen, she was walking quickly to her car, avoiding eye contact. No clipboard, no smug smile, just a woman who had learned the hard way that lies and prejudice don't hold up under the weight of the truth. What about you? Do you think confronting her so publicly was the right way to end it, or should I have handled it quietly behind closed doors?